Good. Okay, so welcome everyone to Poetry Sunday, to our haiku workshop. Yay. So let's start just by sitting quietly for a minute. Okay. Okay, good. So, before we start reading the haiku that you all have emailed to me over the week, let's, just for a little point of reference, go back to the very first haiku ever written, which you may recall was by Basho, the father of haiku. Because it's so popular and important, but it was written in Japanese. We hear, several different translations from it in English, but it goes something like, the old well, frog jumps in, kerplop. The old well, frog jumps in, kerplop. Okay, so bearing in mind that every haiku written after that is descended from this one, right? This is the original pure DNA of the haiku. What do we see? What's going on here? What is distinctive about it? Why do we get to call it haiku and we don't call it a sonnet? We don't call it a Hallmark greeting card, and we don't call it anything else. We don't call it the blues. Okay.
It's very simple. It seems to, it's written in simple, direct.
Simple, direct.
Yeah, simple.
Right. Simple, direct, short, right? Concise. Concrete.
Concrete, right?
Concrete, right? Concrete. What's being described, what's being evoked is objects, right? What are the objects here? The well, the frog, and actions. The frog jumps in. The sound happens, right? What about the time factor? What is the time factor? For instance, if you read a novel, the time factor. Yeah, that's right, Casey. The time factor is like this. It's a moment. A novel might take place over a week or a month or a lifetime, but a haiku is, right, it's a moment. It's a snapshot of a moment of concrete experience, right? It's a snapshot of a moment of concrete experience. And a really good haiku is a snapshot of a moment of concrete experience that evokes kensho, K-E-N-S-H-O, which is a moment of satori, a moment of transcendence. Okay. But notice it doesn't say, and then I experienced transcendence or anything like that, right? Why? Because that doesn't do anything for us. Don't tell me you experienced kensho. Put me into the moment, put me into the experience, into the concrete situation where you were, where you experienced the kensho, and let me experience it firsthand. Don't give me your warmed over leftovers. Okay? And if you think back to all the haiku that we've been reading over the last 5-6 weeks, they're all like this. Okay. Okay, is this all landing for you? This all sounds right, should sound pretty familiar by now.
Yeah, just one more thought. It always has to be an experience. It can never be a thought, an experiential thought. Is that true?
Okay, well, you threw a monkey wrench into the question at the last minute there. Experience and thought.
Don't worry,
and then,
table it.
because
We'll
you were trying to give yourself some wiggle room there because you saw you didn't like the answer you knew I was going to say, so you tried to split the difference. You just made up something called an experiential thought, which doesn't.
The ideal student.
Which does. You just made up something that does not exist. Okay. And in fact, but no, it raises an excellent point, which is really important for writing haiku and really important for writing in general, and really important for our Dharma practice and our life, which is discriminating between thought and experience. And a whole lot of people do a whole lot of suffering, eliminating which is the whole point of this project. A whole lot of people do a whole lot of suffering that arises from the simple failure to discriminate between experience and thought. Okay. I want to get to the haiku here, but I'm just going to throw that out there. I will throw out, there's a line in it's one of Shakespeare's plays. I think it's Julius Caesar. It goes something like, the coward dies 1,000 deaths, the hero dies but once. Okay, something, I may not be quoting that precisely, something like that. The coward dies 1,000 deaths, the hero dies but once. Can you see what's being said there? In what way does the coward die 1,000 deaths? That, not literally. Where does
through indecisiveness, through fear, through
fear? It's okay. The coward dies 1,000 times in his thoughts. Oh shit!
Now he's hung up on his own thoughts. He's just cycling.
He's cycling in his thoughts. Oh no, this thing is going to kill me. Oh no, this thing's going to kill. Right. So he goes through. He has to go through all the shpilkas. He has to go through the dukkha. Okay, the dukkha, the suffering of all those deaths, because they're all going on in his mind. He's mixed up thought and experience. The hero doesn't have to deal with that. He still has the thoughts, but he doesn't get caught up in them. He knows the difference. Okay, now he knows, okay, thoughts are there, but they're just thoughts. And haiku, this is one of the reasons why haiku is such a great, writing haiku is such a great exercise, not just for writing, but for life, for your Dharma practice. It really helps you to discriminate between thinking and experiencing. Okay, so I am going to share my screen. Okay, y'all seeing my screen? Y'all seeing the haiku here? Someone say something. Yes, okay, good. Thank you.
Yes, we can see.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Okay. So, chirp, cheep, cheep, swallow. Poop drips down the windows. Must fix the weep holes. Chirp, cheep, cheep, swallow. Poop drips down the windows. Must fix the weep holes. Okay, so talk to me. And always start, whenever you're workshopping, I used to say this to my students all the time, always start with the good news. Okay, always start with what's working well. But this, by the way, this is good advice for life. If, in case you ever need to, criticize someone or something, always start with something positive, even if you have to make some shit up. Like nice shirt, Scott. Too bad, you're an idiot, or something like that.
How did I know that was going to be me?
Okay, but okay, so what is you're just too tempting a target? No, because everyone else here is ladies. I can't attack the ladies, Scott. Okay.
I'm a lady
target.
too.
I can be the next target.
I'm a lady.
Yeah, actually, you're pretty much a lady, Scott. So okay, sorry. Okay, nice shirt, Dean. Too bad you're an idiot. Okay, so what is working here? What's working here, haiku wise? Or let's just start with what's going on. What's going on? Are you seeing the specific? I mean, the old well, frog jumps in, kerplop. We see very clearly what the situation is. Okay. Do we see very clearly what the situation is here? What is the situation? Someone talk to me.
It's a bird.
There's a bird. Okay. What kind of bird? Come on. Is there a...
I mean, I'm guessing swallow.
Swallow.
I'm just guessing swallow. I know that could go either way.
Yeah. Swallow could be a verb here. Something could be
right.
Swallowing something, especially since there is all this oral activity or beakal activity in the first line. But
Baby bird.
It's a baby bird. Okay. Swallows, or certain kinds of swallows, do nest and window sills a lot. This used to actually, the outside of my classroom where I taught in New Jersey, every year the swallows came back and nested in the windows. Yeah, it was great. Okay, and the poop dripping down the windows must fix the weep holes. Does everyone know what weep holes are? Okay, weep holes are little, very small, maybe about ½ an inch, quarter of an inch across, little kind of rectangular holes near the bottom of the windowsill or the sash for moisture, I believe, to evaporate out so your windows don't cloud up, something like that, for liquid to get out.
It can
So,
also be underneath, they can also be under, because we're remodeling a place, underneath the roof to allow the attic, to allow ventilation for the attic.
to allow ventilation for the attic. So, okay, so maybe that's what's going on here. So was the just the basic situation of what's going on, was that 100% clear to everyone? Raise your hand if it was 100% clear. Yeah. Raise your hand if it was semi-clear. Okay. I mean, is it under the attic? Is it under the window? Okay, so we got the birds. We got the bird cheeping away. We got the poop dripping down the windows, plural. Okay. So evidently we're looking at more than one window. Now let me ask you this. Where is the observer?
My assumption was inside. Sorry, Lisa. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, your assumption was yeah, because there's always an observer. We haven't talked too much about this, but there's always an observer present in haiku. Not always mentioned. In fact, usually not mentioned. That's not a rule, but I'd say more often than not, the observer is implied. But it's very important for the poet to be clear, even if she doesn't write anything explicitly about the observer, because it's really all about the observer. The observer is the one who's having the experience, and hopefully out of that concrete experience, having some kensho take place, some transcendence take place.
Well, that's what's actually kind of missing for me with this one, is that kensho moment. It's very direct, it's very concrete. I have a sense of where the observer is. It's almost it feels now almost too practical. You must fix the weep holes.
Right.
You know?
Okay.
So it's,
yeah. Now, in fact, I think what's happened here, okay, so the writer of this one had a good sense of a good structural sense, which is that there's generally sometimes in the first line, more often in the third line, but not in the second line. It's got to be in the first line or the third line. Usually the third line is kind of the payoff, the kind of the what does this add up to? Usually that's where the kensho takes place. There's some epiphany, some revelation, the kerplop of the frog, right? And in that case, that one pays off into kensho because it goes kerplop. When we're looking at the old well, things are quiet. It's the coolness of the old well. It's springtime because that's when the frogs come out, spring or summer. And then the kerplop, and that resonates. It jumps into the well and it just resonates. And that resonating in the well is the resonating in the mind. It's the resonating of the kensho, right? Now in this one, structurally, there's the contrasting line, which is the third line. But instead of it paying off into a moment of transcendence, it pays off into a moment, it pays off into a thought, into, Lisa, as you said, a practical thought. It's like, oh, add this to my to-do list, right? So we got some of the makings of it, but it's not quite adding up, and that's really, can you see it's valuable to see where these things are working and where they're not working. and think, okay, now
Mhm.
how can we, okay. Also, I would suggest maybe instead of windows, maybe make it window. Limit. Because if it's windows, now we're spreading out the moment. We're spreading out the point of view. We're like survey the whole house or something, perhaps. If it's window, we're more in one place. We want to make the concrete, the earthbound experience as earthbound and limited and specific as possible. And then from there, let that be the launching pad for the boundlessness of the Kensho to take place. Right? Otherwise, windows, I'm looking around, where's the moment? It's like I just heard my father's voice. I've mentioned my father was an oboe player, and way back when we lived in New York, when I was a little kid, he used to play with Leonard Bernstein, and talked about, people loved Bernstein and he was a great showman and all that. But as my father said, he drove the musicians crazy because he said my father said Bernstein was a wonderful modern dancer. Right? You see him on the podium, he's an interpretive dancer. He's interpreting the music, doing all this stuff. But my father, as a practical musician, said he would watch Bernstein, he'd say, "Where's the downbeat?" Right? By the way, Casey, as a musician, you'll be interested. What the musicians did was they ignored Bernstein. They followed the concertmaster of the first clarinet. And they just let Bernstein dance. So what was I
That's a
saying?
great analogy here.
Yes.
I love that. Where's the downbeat is actually something I would use quite often in life.
Yes.
All
Yes.
right, so what's the downbeat?
Where's the downbeat? Where does it come together? Just that we can get onto all the frou-frou, all the grand stuff after that. But there's got to be the downbeat or you got nothing. Right? So the downbeat, right, down, this is working better than I realized. Down is where we touch down, where we touch the earth. Right? And again, the great thing about writing haiku is that you've got to touch the earth in one spot. That spot has to be clear. That spot, that moment. By the way, I would suggest that this writer take another look at the first line, what's going on here with chirp, cheep, cheap. I'm not quite sure what's going on. It looks like we're trying some onomatopoeia, right? Some getting the words used to imitate the sound of the swallows, but I don't understand the progression. From my memory, I don't recall swallows calling in a progression that sounds like chirp and then cheep and then cheep.
Can I say this is mine?
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
They're baby birds. They're baby birds. And so it really is a and
Okay.
then
But why then why not cheep, cheep, cheep? Why is it chirp, cheep, cheep?
because well, because I wasn't sure whether cheep cheep would imply the sound of a bird. So chirp, I thought is something we all recognize, or it could be mama bird goes chirp and then the babies go cheep, cheep.
Right. Okay, so the way you
And
got
then
the
they swallow the worm.
so the steps, the way you got there makes sense, but then you have to see what's the result when the reader from his end looks at it, and I got confused. How about this? How about this for the first line? Baby swallows.
Okay, that would.
Okay. Baby swallows. You want it. You want the sound to be there. Maybe cheap of babies. Swallows. Baby swallows cheap.
What about just baby swallows chirp?
Baby
What's going on?
swallows
No?
chirp. Since we know they're babies, you save yourself doing the onomatopoeia. Because one thing about doing the kind of cheap is it starts to border on being cutesy pie, right? Being cutesy, being cutesy pie, and cutesy pie is death in haiku, right? I mean, they're really they're young, they're right. They're not up here in the yin, the sweetness. They're not Hallmark cards. And anything that's like sentimentality is going to be. Which may work in some other kinds of writing, is not going to work here. Okay, we got to move on. We got a bunch of others here.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Looking down, smashed leaf, wrinkled mountains. Looking down, smashed leaf, wrinkled mountains. Okay, talk to me. What are you getting? By the way, I've been doing this. I'm doing this. Well, never mind. Let's go ahead. No. By the way, okay. So what? Someone talk to me about what's the basic experience here? What's the downbeat? What's the downbeat? What's going on?
Well, I would think it's fall time, because that's when the leaves fall off the trees and they kind of get dry and they get smashed, or else I'm walking and I'm smashing the leaves.
Right. Okay. Okay. And where are we? Where is the observer?
Above what's taking place, looking down upon what's taking place.
Yeah, but from where? From a rooftop? From
Maybe in the mountain, and it's
okay.
wrinkled because the ground is uneven. It's kind of, I didn't think of that until you kind of fleshed it out, but maybe up in the mountains, and as you look down, the ground is not even, it's all wrinkly.
Well, it says wrinkled mountains. So it sounds like
at first I felt,
yeah, go ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead, Cynthia.
No, I felt like it was someone walking who's looking down to make sure their feet are carefully placed, walking on a path. But so smash leaf, maybe at first I thought, how are they seeing wrinkled mountains if they're staring at the ground? But then I realized the smash leaf perhaps looks like a wrinkled mountain, looks like, in which case I felt it should be singular. So I'm not sure if that was the intention.
Okay. Now, when we're writing haiku and when we're reading haiku, we got to play by the same rules. We generally avoid metaphor. Okay. So we assume everything's literal unless it's really proven otherwise. Again, can you see how that is of a piece with just really being rooted in the ground? We want to go directly from a specific, concrete, actual experience to kensho without anything in between. Like we don't want this thought in between, must fix the weep holes. We don't want a metaphor in between. We want just two stops. This is the express train. The express train goes, it's a direct train from a moment of actual experience to satori, kensho, nirvana, enlightenment, without any local stops of thought, idea, sentimental emotion, or metaphor.
Dean, that's a really great point about not reading and inserting metaphor, because I was imagining being that.
Yeah.
And maybe it would be looking down, smash leaf, looking up, wrinkled mountains, like something so concrete.
Yeah.
But I was really like, well, if you're looking down, you're not seeing wrinkled mountains. So perhaps you're seeing that in the formation of a smash leaf.
Cynthia, you're good though. That's exactly what it was. Walking, looking down, and then it looked like mountains in the leaf. So it was for sure. I didn't know about the metaphor thing, but man,
Yeah.
you read it perfectly.
Yeah. Good.
That's a
Yeah, it
great,
was the gravel underneath the leaf that made it look like a bunch of mountains.
Great.
Ooh,
Yeah. Now so good on both of you. Now, having said that, if you go back into our book, you will find haikus where the thing is being where there is a metaphor like this. You will find some. I would, especially when you're first starting off doing this, I would suggest avoiding it as much as possible. Just to go for the strictest, most disciplined simplicity. Okay, because really the thing about haiku is it's simple, but it's not easy. As I think you're seeing, it's not easy because it's so simple, right? We're used to having recourse to all this complexity. We get these handholds. Oh, I can use metaphor here. I can evoke this emotion here. I can write, and then we're being stripped of all of that. Okay, let's go on. Heavy. Oh, now, is there any sense of Kensho in the third line of this one? I would say there is. I would say there is. If you're looking at this smashed leaf and seeing mountains in it, there is an opening out.
yeah.
There is an opening out. There's an expansiveness. Okay, let's go on. Heavy rain, boot splashing puddles. Oops. Heavy rain, boot splashing puddles. Oops. Okay, so where are we? When are we? What's going on? Where's the downbeat? What's the situation? Okay, we're splashing through puddles in a heavy rain. And what happens in the third line?
Too heavy of a splash, maybe, and got wet all over more than just the boot.
Right. Okay.
Maybe it's the sound of the oops, but, and I know metaphor and all that, but, I had a sense of like skipping through the puddles, like, oops, 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 the puddles and you're splashing and the rain and it's wet.
That's fun. That's fun. That's fun. I've done that. I hope you've all done that. If let's assume for the moment, Lisa, let's assume for the moment that that's the writer's intention. If so, does oops work unambiguously? Or is it possible to misinterpret it? Can oops mean something else besides fun and skipping? Yeah, usually oops means made a mistake.
Right.
God, I'm seeing Daniel
Maybe you
Day-Lewis.
slip-
I'm
yeah,
seeing
slipping.
Daniel Day-Lewis in Gangs of New York. Whoops-a-daisy. Any of you know that line? Oh my God, he was terrifying as Bill the Butcher. Whoops-a-daisy. Yeah, if you say oops, people's first assumption is, oh, some inadvertency has taken place, right? So if you want to evoke skipping playfully, you got to do something else. You can't have speed bumps in your writing, in whatever you're writing or whatever you're doing. It's not good enough. It's not good enough to say, well, this can mean this. This can be interpreted this way. It's got to be bulletproof. It's got to be the only way it can be read, unless you deliberately want ambiguity, in which case you must be clearly ambiguous. Okay, you follow what I'm saying? But I suspect that I mean, I do get that sense of the playful skipping here in the second line, the boot splashing. This is a kind of a neologism here. This is not a word you'll find in the dictionary, boot splashing, but I like it.
Mm.
I like it. It has that sense that you're splashing it through with our boots. You know, these are puddles that are just made for boot splashing. You know, it's like they're just way too tempting to not splash through them in our boots. That's great. That's really lovely. By the way, something else about this one that I like, which doesn't necessarily have to be always, but I think works nicely here, is that the second line is a little bit longer than the first and third lines, right? Now, the one thing that everyone knows about haiku, who only know a little tiny bit about haiku, is that you write in 5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5 syllables, right? Now, some of you will recall that, way back in our first meeting about haiku, I pointed out that when you're writing modern haiku in English, we usually don't do that. For technical reason, because Japanese is a much more discursive language. 575 in Japanese is very concise. In English, it's probably too much. And a bigger problem is that if you wind up writing something artificially that you're manipulating, moving things around, making it awkward, or even making it more wordy than it needs to be in order to fulfill 575, then you've missed the spirit of the thing. So we usually just say, forget about 575. But there is something, and you can see it here, about having the middle line a little bit longer, right? Because that's Act 2. Right? I mean, 3 is the magic number. One of the reasons that haiku are so powerful, that's just such a powerful structure, and people are still, writing these things centuries after Basho, right? 3 is the magic number. 3 is structurally, if you want a stool to be stable, you make your stool with 3 legs. That's more stable than 4 legs, right? Every Hollywood movie ever made has the classic 3-act structure. Act 1 lays things out. Act 3, and every fairy tale, everything. Act 1, the hero is called, Luke, you must go, and the evil empires, blah, blah, blah. Act 3, after they blow up the Death Star, they return to the triumphant thing. The middle part, the whole, encounter, and then, and you gather up the allies, and you go, blah, blah, and you find out how the Death Star works. That's the longest, right? So that's the 7 syllables instead of the 5. So that's going on here in the second line being a little bit longer. Again, and I noticed that's going on in this one, that's going on in this one. And I like that happened, that seems to have happened maybe just kind of intuitively for people. That's where the plot thickens, where the plot develops. Here it's set forth, and in Act 3 or line 3, it pays off the punchline. Hopefully it's a punchline where our brain explodes into transcendence, and Act 2 is the development.
What would make it more clear, like if they said, oops? I fell or something.
Well, if the person fell, it might be I fell, but actually present tense, I fall. Remember, if we have the verb at all, and if we don't need the verb, right, then we don't put a verb. We don't put in anything we don't need. But if we're going to have a verb at all, it's in present tense because that's immediate. We're trying to put the reader right there like it's happening right now. So if in fact the dramatic situation that we were trying to present is that the person gets carried away and they fall, they get carried away in their carefree boot splashing. And suddenly they have some cares here where they've fallen. That's a good question. How to do it in a way that's concise. I don't know, then I follow something face down or something. There's two things I'm thinking of here that I'm trying to do simultaneously. One is how to make that situation clear in a concise way, and two, how to have it reflect a sense of Kensho. I mean, where I would get the Kensho, I think, is on the way down, right? Right?
Falling.
Yeah, falling, you know, as the old saying goes, it's not the falling that gets you, it's the landing. Right? Right? I mean, as long as you're falling, while you're falling, as far as we know, we're flying. If you can be completely in the present tense while you're falling, hey, this is cool, right? This is cool, I'm flying. Look, Mom, I'm flying. Now, when you land, maybe it's a different story. You know, that's a harder test. So maybe I don't know how to write this one, but maybe this is the thing I would suggest that this writer take another look at. Is there maybe where is the Kensho, and then how do I do that? Okay, we got to move on. Grandma sang to me, "I'm in love with you, honey, my inheritance." Grandma sang to me, "I'm in love with you, honey, my inheritance." Okay, what do you see in here? Are you getting a clear basic situation?
Yes, it's a beautiful memory that would take one through life, get you through hard moments.
Yeah.
But it's a memory.
Yeah, I got those memories. Hopefully you all do. I can tell you exactly the songs my grandma Sylvia used to sing to me and my brothers in bed. By the sea, by the beautiful sea. All these songs from the 1920s or the teens. Oh my God. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Cynthia.
No, it could be certainly translated to a present experience for, most certainly.
Right. So yeah, so you put your finger on the thing. On the one hand, it's a beautiful memory. On the other hand, it's a memory. It's a memory. So it's not present moment. So right away, that's a little bit, off the track of where we're going with haiku generally, right? What else?
Are we sure it's not an experience?
I'm sorry?
That maybe it's not a memory? Is there any way to look at it as not a memory? I guess I still read it as like grandma saying to me 15 minutes ago before I went to bed, and the person's just retelling a really recent experience. Is that bad? Is this thing not thinking of it as a memory?
15 minutes.
I'm
15
with you, Christy. I think
15 minutes ago is a
I
memory.
think I misread it.
15 minutes ago is a memory. 15 years ago, 15 minutes ago, those are memories.
And if it's grandma sings to me,
Okay.
present tense, that's somehow how I read it. And that gave a
Yeah.
whole really interesting spin on my inheritance. I just
Right.
misread it. Grandma
Right.
sings. to me.
Okay. So let's look at it as it was written. So clearly, again, as we said, here, yeah, actually, all of these, there is this sense of a payoff in the third line, right? There is a sense of Act 3, line 3 being is where we get the punch, and we get a punch here. But now, is the punch in this case? Is it Kensho? Is it transcendence? Or is it something else? Is it an emotion? Is it a thought? Okay, I'd say it's a thought, right?
In past tense.
We're drawing a conclusion. We're drawing a conclusion. We're saying, the thing that Cynthia and I were just saying a minute ago. These are things we carry around. I could be, sitting in a nursing home or sitting in jail someday, and I can take comfort from the memory of my grandma Sylvia singing these songs. That's a wonderful inheritance. This is a wonderful memory. This is a wonderful thing to have in life. Okay, but can you see as haiku, it's a little bit problematic because it's a memory, and because it's sweet. Can you see what I'm saying? Because of the sweetness of it, we land in the sweetness, which is a wonderful place to land, but it's so wonderful that we don't keep going to look to land in transcendence, right? We're not going to get caught up in the sweetness of a frog jumping into a well.
Right. It's sort of emotionally intimate to the point where it does that thing, like you said last week, where it bypasses the ability for I don't know why I'm thinking the word, for the reader, the consumer,
Yeah.
to actually put it together themselves. It's sort of like what I was saying with my narcissistic, like pull you into my emotional thing, and here's what happened. And it's very, very intimate.
Yeah.
Very open.
Yeah. It's a beautifully recalled and beautifully shared, very warm, intimate treasure. But then what we wind up with is this intimate treasure. We don't wind up with transcendence, which is a different thing. Okay, which is something that's not involved with this kind of rich emotion, not involved with a thought, a conclusion, anything. Okay. By the way, go ahead.
It's odd because I misread that first line as grandma sings to me.
Yeah.
The word inheritance to me was not like an amount of money or stuff like that. It was the inheritance of the joy of that experience.
Oh, I think that's what everyone, I assume that's what everyone got, but I think it's got nothing to do with the verb tense. I mean, that still works, that if anything works better. Grandma sang this to me, 50 years ago, and I was a little kid, and I'm still warmed by it. That's my inheritance. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't think that's really a key issue here. Okay. Old friend is speaking. Orange sun, water, South Ferry, nose is running. Old friend is speaking, orange sun, water, South Ferry, nose is running. Okay, talk to me. What's going on? Where are we?
On a ferry.
We're on the ferry. Okay.
It's probably either sunset, probably sunset if it's an orange sun.
Can I just ask a question real quick? Is this going to be on YouTube after, or?
That's my intention, because there are people that like to watch these.
Yeah, no, only because I just got in and the caregiver was asking me questions, so I missed the last haiku, which was mine.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So I'd like to hear all the talk about it.
Yes, I will post it on YouTube. Good.
Okay,
Good. Okay. I thought you were unusually silent.
thank you.
Yeah,
Okay, sorry.
Okay, good. No problem. Okay, so we're on the ferry. Let me tell you, we're running out of time. A thing I really like about this one, I like the funky third line. Right?
Me too. What a downbeat.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, everyone has had some, interesting kind of third line challenges with these. And by the way, everyone, when they first try to do this, finds out it's much harder than it seems. Everyone gets pummeled. That's what workshopping is about. And that's what we're here for. But in terms of the third lines, where this one, the payoff was this kind of thought to add to the to-do list. This one was this very interesting kind of vision, maybe a little suspect because it's metaphor. This one was a nice, sharp, oops, but a little bit unclear what's going on. This one we just talked about is, it's this warm, intimate, emotional thing, but then it lands so powerfully there that it doesn't go on to Kensho. This one doesn't do any of those things. This one is so concrete, the third line, the key line, it's so concrete, no one is going to mistake noses running for, oh, this is such a warm, sweet, sentimental thing. Right? Doesn't have that problem.
It almost seems like the Kenshos in the second line, like maybe all of us have experienced being on a ferry, wherever it is, and the old friend is there, which is great.
Right.
And then, and so that is an unusual situation, having the second line express that. And then the nose is running makes perfect sense too. So
right.
It's unusual.
Right. Yeah, and sometimes, in fact, probably always when you write one of these, it's always worth trying, oh, what if I put the lines in a different order? Does it work better if I try it in this order or in this order?
Yeah, I like noses running at the very top too. It's a great opener.
Is there anything in the second line that's superfluous? Any dead weight in there?
Maybe the water, unless the water's doing something like running down the side of the ferry in a certain way.
Right, if it's running in
Orange for the sun.
Or say it again, Scott?
Orange for the sun. Orange for the sun. Superfluous? No.
Well, you tell me. If we take away orange,
then we take away the time of day.
Then we take away the time of day. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. right, then we lose.
Right.
South Ferry, I'm not sure it's important which direction. the
Oh,
ferry goes.
south, yeah.
Yeah, I want to go back to water
Southbound
because if we're on the ferry, we're on the water, right?
Oh,
So to my eye, the water is superfluous, right?
Mm.
What you want to create as much scene as possible with as few words as possible, right? So if you've already you want to imply as much as possible. That's what makes it magical. Okay, I know we got to wrap up in a moment here. Did I tell you guys in a previous one about this poem that I wrote years ago about the old barber? No, okay. I told you about my friend Jim Hanlon. I read a haiku by Jim Hanlon, right? And he's the one who one of his poems is inscribed in the wall at the New Jersey Transit Terminal in Penn Station in New York, which I hope you'll go see someday. So when I first started teaching at the Pingree School, Jim and I shared an office for a couple of years. And he would come in the morning with fresh poems he had just written, and he would read them out loud to me and ask for my input. And I started doing the same thing. And I brought in a poem one day. I still remember this so clearly. This was like 40 years ago. I brought in a poem and it went, the old barber with his sad dog's eyes shuffles flat-footed to the leather chair. Okay? The old barber with his sad dog's eyes shuffles flat-footed to the leather chair. I was very proud of this because it's very concrete. It's very specific. It's not a haiku, but it's very much in the spirit of it to a certain degree. It's concrete, it's specific, it's unique. I'd actually had this experience. I can still see the barbershop on Elmora Avenue in Elizabeth, New Jersey. But Jim, who was much more the experienced poet, said, okay, you're really evoking this experience, but is every word that's here needed to evoke the experience? And then he started crossing things out. He said, okay, do we need old? He said, if this barber has sad dog's eyes, doesn't that already make him old? Right? And for that matter, if he's got dog eyes, do we need to say sad? And we kept going. If he's a barber, isn't it already implied that the chair is leather, etc.? By the time he got done with it, the old barber with his sad dog's eyes shuffles flat-footed to the leather chair became the dog-eyed barber shuffles to the chair. The dog-eyed barber shuffles to the chair. Can you see that?
Yeah.
He was right. He was right. Every single bit of it's the same movie with about 1/3 the number of syllables. That's what we're trying, and that makes it magic. That because we're experiencing all that stuff in the movie, and we don't know how we got the experience. We're getting the experience without being told all that explicitly. So that's what we're trying to do here. So we want to make it as concise, as evocative like that as we can, but it's also got to be clear. Okay, you getting that? You getting that? The dog-eyed barber shuffles to the chair. Right? If he's shuffling, I can still hear Jim saying that. If he's shuffling, he's got flat feet. Right? Which barbers are notorious for getting flat feet from all those years of standing, cutting hair.
Tell us a little about the intended Kencho there.
In the nose is running?
No, in yours, in the The Shuffling Barber.
Well, I wasn't writing it as a haiku, just as a little poem.
Got it.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to read into it.
Yeah. No, I think it's a terrific concrete moment. It's not particularly a moment of Kensho.
Perfect.
But
you're teaching us how to read into anything now. I think you could have come back and said dog eye man, and I would have gone, oh, that's deep.
Yeah, but sure, but deep with what? You can be deep with meaning, associative meaning, like metaphorical meaning, deep with emotion, and all that. There's a place for all of that. Here in haiku, deep with Kensho. And we want, and in order to, we don't want anything getting in the way of that. So we don't want it to be deep with that other stuff that can be perfectly appropriate. Those of you who were with us when we were reading John Donne, Donne is just rich with metaphor and conceit, the extended metaphors that go on for 2 or 3 stanzas and so forth. But he's playing a different game, so it's got different rules. So the game here is everything stripped down. Don't evoke anything else. Take us straight from Earth to ground control to Major Tom, right? Straight from Earth to the outer
Kensho.
space of Kensho. Yeah, Earth to Kensho.
Hey, Dean,
Yes.
do you have one off just in your head of your haikus that we could hear?
One of my haikus.
Yeah.
No, I haven't written a lot of haiku, and I haven't written any in a long time. I'll dig one up or write a new one before next time. Okay.
Nice. We'll hold you to
Okay.
it.
Thanks.
Okay. But I like, but just to spend one more minute on this last one. I really like what's going on here. The moment is very interesting, isn't it? I like, you remember, when we were talking, was it this group? No, I think it was maybe Tuesday night, I think Thursday night meditation a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about the bardo, the in-between places. And I mentioned what my Lama Nakchung Rinpoche used to say, that every moment is the bardo. It's not just the bardo, not just the transitional, the median between death and rebirth, which is what people usually imply by bardo, but every moment is the bardo between what came before and what comes next. And so I like this business of the ferry. The ferry is kind of so strongly, so implicitly in between places. Halfway, right, I did, if you were in that meeting, I talked about the A.A. Milne, little A.A. Milne poem. Halfway down the stairs is a stair where I sit. There isn't any other stair quite like it. It isn't at the bottom, it isn't at the top, so this is the place where I always stop. Halfway up the stairs. Notice the first time it says halfway down the stairs. Second verse it says halfway up the stairs. Which is it? Is it halfway down or is it halfway up? Same thing. The difference is all mental. It's all your intention, right? Halfway up the stairs isn't up, isn't down. It isn't in the nursery. It isn't in the town. And all sorts of funny thoughts run around my head. It isn't really anywhere. It's somewhere else instead. Right. Okay. So there's your Kensho. It isn't anywhere. It's somewhere else. Whatever you're thinking, it's somewhere else. It's that in between this and this is this. And I think the ferry is very rich with that. Right? Right? It isn't in the nursery, it isn't in the town, it isn't in New York, it isn't in New Jersey. It's on the ferry. or between whatever, Manhattan and Brooklyn. We're on the ferry. And so that's very, very rich. It's a very well-chosen moment. And the orange sun is very evocative of, classical haiku, Japanese haiku, which tend to be more nature oriented, more outdoor oriented. There's always a sense of the season, and you can write haiku for any season, summer, fall, winter, spring, but the favorite season is fall.
Mm.
Can you see why? Winter and summer are they're too monochromatic. They're too extreme. Whereas spring and fall are times of change, times of more in-between stuff. They're more Bardo-ish, right? And then between spring and fall, why is fall preferable to a haiku poet? Again, there's plenty of spring haiku, but if you had to choose one, fall is more elegiac, it's more melancholy, it's more, there's this word in Japanese, yugen. Yugen is this mood of just kind of quiet melancholy. It's the mood of sundown as opposed to the mood of sunset as opposed to sunrise. Sunrise is like the springtime of the day. Okay, we're going to spring into action. We're going to do this stuff. And then, sunset, okay, this happened. Maybe we wanted to accomplish this and we didn't. Maybe now things are just settling out. They're becoming more quiet, maybe a little more moody, a little bit more elegiac. It's fall, the colors are turning. The smell of the crinkly leaves. If we had to choose one as haiku poets, that's what we choose. So this is very rich. This has got a lot of good stuff going on here. And I like the funkiness and the concreteness and the unsentimentality of that third line. I don't quite get Kensho coming out of it. That's the hard part. That's the hard part, to get the ground control and the major tom both going on in a concise way. And that third line is, that's why Basho worked on this stuff all his life. Okay, guys, I gotta go. I just got a message that the pizza's waiting. Okay, so email me more haiku for next time, okay?
Okay.
Good, yeah, we're just getting warmed up here.
Thank you,
Okay.
Dean.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you so much. Take care.
Appreciate it.
Enjoy
Bye.
reading.